Um, Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a complicated topic. I have with me Shashi, who handles media at Reckitt. Uh, I think every advertiser here would agree that efficiency in campaigns is, of course, very, very important, right? If you're running a campaign and you're trying to obviously build for efficiency, that's like a no-brainer. But it's always, confusing, hard. It looks like it is efficient, but advertisers keep looking at data and seeing weird patterns, right? And many of those things don't make sense. So, for example, Shashi has a question for you. Uh, I see a dichotomy. I see a lot of advertisers seeing weird patterns in their data. Campaign data, CTRs not making sense, session data not making sense, not much ROI coming in. But platform analytics, Google Analytics, publisher reports all show very nice fancy numbers, right? And we still have advertisers who are seeing these problems, but they're choosing to believe those numbers. Uh, how will you drive efficiency if you are believing a number which you don't trust, right? So what's your take on this problem?
So, at Reckitt, I mean, of course, we understand that, and we, understand that platform reports are an industry norm, right? It's built, it's been there for a long time. People kind of trust those reports, but I think blindly trusting those reports is something that we don't do at Reckitt. It's important to kind of, triangulate external validation partner to kind of, see whether the numbers do make sense or not, right? Because largely, I mean, platforms, they are driven by, spends for that matter, right? But for example, at a brand side, at Reckitt, we're also about to sort of, ensure that every impression, every view, every click that we are getting is not just, a click, but also it's a meaningful click or a meaningful impression or a real view. So I think it's important that most of the brands today kind of, would look at external ad verification as an afterthought. And I think that needs to change. Typically, if you see a data maturity model, right, there are some brands who will be slightly ahead, slightly, behind. But I think it's a matter of evolution. Once you understand the power of data, I think there's no shying away that you need an external validation to kind of, come in.
No, I agree. I mean, we've seen a lot of data which is showing, very weird patterns, 50% CTRs, visit to click ratios which don't make any sense, right? The data just doesn't stand ground. But then we have advertisers who say, Dheeraj, why waste money on tracking? I'm getting this report from the platform, right? I think that's I think the maturity curve which you're talking about,
Exactly.
right? Okay. This whole space of measurement is about also brand safety, ad fraud, viewability, the BAV space, as it is said, right? A lot of advertisers, unfortunately, treat it as a audit exercise, right? That, okay, my auditor will ask me my question, the CMO will say, what did you do? So maybe I'll use it for an audit purpose, but I'll not use it as a continuous process, right? What's your thought on that?
Again, as I said, I think it's a function of, where you are on the maturity curve, right? There has been a journey that Reckitt is also being on, right? But I think at least for us, be it brand safety, be it ad frauds, or be it viewability, these are business critical for us, right? Because, if you miss any of these, right, there is a reputational damage, and there's a financial damage also, right? As simple as that. I mean, if you mentioned that, the click-to-visit ratio, right? One classic example, a couple of months ago, there was one campaign where we actually saw a very abnormal click-to-visit ratio to an extent of almost 10% only clicks landing. Now, if it's a CPC deal, right, and if I'm paying for those 100% clicks, but those clicks don't translate into visits. So there is there is something amiss that the ecosystem is kind of, figuring. And I think those are the things that therefore we need a validation to sort of, see, because a full funnel is needed. It cannot end at an impression level. And I think even when I started the BAV at Reckitt, the starting point was impression, yes. But then we later realized that it doesn't end at impression, because impression is no value if it is not generating a view or a click. And I have seen a CTR of 60% myself. I mean, I know the campaign that you're referring to. I mean, bizarre. In my career, I've never seen a 50% click-through, right? But I think those are the things that we need to figure out, that somebody in the value system is trying to kind of, make some gains out of it. And I think that is somewhere we need to kind of, stop the leakages.
In fact, in my opinion, just that one campaign in a year, where you would probably spend up a few crores, right? If this issue gets solved, probably can fund for measurement for the whole year itself, right? So I think it's a positive ROI value addition. Even a single campaign which gets safeguarded, and there is 20, 30, 40% money which is protected, can fund for all your analytics for the whole year. I think that's the way advertisers need to look.
Absolutely. I think you nailed it right, because I think the way even when we pitched it to our business, if it was from a ROI lens, right? Even a 10% or 8% saving, which is not difficult to have, trust me. When you kind of look into a full funnel activation, a 10% efficiency is guaranteed almost. There is so much of inefficiency in the value system, and that 10% should be able to kind of fund your entire activity. And I think because a business would want to understand that, if I use this technology, what happens, right? And I think because of the full funnel kind of a view, it's quite easy to kind of prove that math, because at the end of the day, the money saved is sort of money. So for example, we don't pay for ad frauds. Any impression that is a non-bot, we don't pay for it. So I am saving that money, and that money kind of goes to kind of fund some of these tech for our campaigns.
In fact, you keep referring to full funnel, so maybe I'll just talk about it. Full funnel means that you have impressions in the user journey, then it converts to clicks. Clicks will hopefully result in visits or sessions on your website, and then someone will maybe buy something from you, right? That's the consumer journey. Yes. And typically, most brand marketers say, I'm okay with impressions, maybe I look at CTR and click, and you stop there, and then you say, okay, everything else is performance, lower funnel, that's not my problem area, right? My D2C guy will take care of that. But I think a brand campaign should also be trying to get some performance out. I think I heard this statement. Every campaign now is a performance campaign, right? There is no campaign where you don't want performance.
Absolutely. So I think you said it right. It's not just a D2C use case. Let me put it that way. Even if you don't have a D2C journey where you're not able to kind of see through the funnel that what is the cost per click, what is the CAC, etc. Even if you're not doing that, but still, even if it's a top funnel campaign, the analysis cannot end at impressions and clicks, because there is a reason why there's a landing page. Yeah. There is some objective for a brand. It could be filling up a form. It could be, for example, just the dwell rate. It could be time spent or engagement for that matter. But if you're not able to see that through, then I think there is a miss. So yes, even if it is a top funnel campaign, I believe that performance should be in the DNA of how we plan media, and not just limited to D2C lower funnel campaigns.
I'll talk about a touchy topic these days. We all saw a news article of HUL facing problems on frequency, right? And we've all experienced this. You go on many platforms and you see the same ad 10 times, 20 times, and you wonder, who is this brand manager who, why is he running an ad 10 times to the same guy, right? Almost every brand manager would set up at 3 or maybe 4. I mean, that's like the general number which everyone accepts. But clearly that doesn't seem to be working, because most of the time you yourself, all of you would have seen the ad coming in a lot of times, right? What's your take on that? It's do you see that as a leakage? And what do you view on this between a reach and a frequency conundrum?
So I think because you kind of mentioned seeing an ad too many times, so let me give a consumer view first, right? There is a reason. So whenever you kind of have a campaign and you sort of put media behind, there is a reason. You want people to get aware and eventually be interested in your product, and have you somewhere in the consideration set. Whenever you are in the in-market kind of a mindset, you kind of possibly will go buy. That is the basic premise. But I think when does the interest becomes irritation, it's very difficult to see, again, if you're seeing a average frequency or AOTS. These things will never come up, right? Because, typically we'll see, okay, I planned at 4, the report will say 4.5 delivered, so great, but what we don't know is that, there are so many, and I can give an example of our campaign, right? These are kind of, legit large-scale platforms I'm talking about, right? Of course, I'm not going to name any, but, I did see that, the frequency cap being 150 is a number that we're seeing now. I have seen a 200 plus numbers
I've seen 1,000 number.
Yes, so I think that is exactly what the concern is, because you are, irritating your audience, which possibly will sort of, just, shut you off. The second thing is, and I can talk from a FMCG lens, because, brand penetration is our biggest agenda, right? So whenever my job, when I get a media budget, is to ensure that I reach out to maximum number of people, and I'm very simplistically, I'm putting things, right? Now, if my frequency cap is flouted, which means that I'm reaching out to Dheeraj 1,000 times, and possibly he will never look at me, right? But I was supposed to sort of reach out to, say, 500 other Dheerajas, which I couldn't. So there is definitely a risk of, irritating your consumer, and it's a dent on the media effectiveness, or, for example, the task that you were kind of entrusted to. So
I think that article talked about people calling up and complaining as well about the same ad coming in.
Absolutely.
Just for reference, typically when you see reports, you look at something called average frequency. Average frequency is average. You need to set up a max frequency. We think a frequency of 3 means maximum 3. It doesn't mean maximum 3. It means average of 3. And one Dheeraj there can see it 1,000 times, while you can still see an average of 3, right? So that's how numbers can be confusing, but you need to be careful. One last question for you, and we are out of time, but just one last question. Brand safety. There has been a huge chaos in the US on the Analytics report, CSAM reports, where a lot of large brands, US government's own ads were running on child pornographic platforms. These were clients who had some of the best agencies, the best tech platforms, the best publishers they were doing with, all the best brains sitting in and doing it, and this still happened, right? Mm-hmm. In your case, also the same thing, right? You have the best people working in, the best agencies, the best platforms, the best people in media working for your campaigns, right? But brand safety ends up being still an issue, right? And India is a very regional country, right? I mean, 100 kilometers, you suddenly have a different culture, a different language, a different flavor. And I'm guessing you reach out to more of the Bharat and the Tier 2 people now rather than the Tier 1 cities. So what's your take on this brand safety issue, and why are platforms not able to solve this on their own?
See, I think who else than FMCG would understand that, every 100 kilometers, everything changes from a dialect to, the way you talk, the way you eat, way you dress, etc. But yes, I think coming back to, with all the right intent, let me put it, it's not that somebody has a malintent of let it run. Nobody does that, right, in the right frame of mind. But I think typically the large-scale ad verification partners, are designed for a broad market, right? Are designed for a broad market with, for example, possibly English as a primary language. And even here in India, it is very difficult. So I think moment the regional nuances come in, there is a shortfall, I would say, in understanding the language to an attempt to sort of, restrict it or sort of, analyze it, because everything has to happen in microseconds. You can't be taking, for example, a minute before the ad lands, right? For example, if it's a if it's a solution that you're sort of, putting in, things have to happen in microseconds. Now, the platforms are not equipped, and we have done multiple kind of tests to figure out that there is, even with the right intent, with all the right things on the paper, checks and the balances, things get missed. And I'm using the word missed because it is not intended.
No, I agree.
Things get missed because, I think the regional nuances is difficult so I think any partner, any verification company who understand, who's built their technology basis, basis the regional nuances, would be more equipped to kind of, handle these complexities, right? And I think that is where, we've been able to kind of, and I was shocked when I saw with all the exclusion list, everything in place. I did sort of, see ads appearing at, not so, misappropriate kind of, placements. And I think that's where we figured that, there is some miss. Yeah. And so I think the regional nuancing is the culprit here, and that needs to be solved for. So,
In fact, I'll give a very interesting example. Imagine a meat delivery ad running on a Hanuman Chalisa or a religious video, right? I mean, a very, very dangerous connotation. And again, it's not an intent thing, but it's an understanding of a local, nuance that, you can't do this. This is dangerous for the brand, right? And I think those are things which are important for understanding. Thank you so much, Shashi. Our time is up. We'll quickly check around if there are any questions. Otherwise, we can hand this over.
sure. Thank you, Dheeraj. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.